really cool, interesting models, and there's a whole class taught in the econ department on international trade. But let's look at some simple representations of international trade. So what I want you to think about here for a second is a tradable good that's produced both within a country and abroad. So the easiest thing to think about is oil. I like to talk about oil, but oil is a market where there's a tremendous amount of market power or price-setting behavior by a cartel called OPEC, so it's not good for this example. Think about the market for wheat, for example, right? Wheat or corn or soy or cotton or something like that. So what you want to think about is that the product is produced by domestic producers and it's produced by foreign producers. So US produces wheat, Canada produces wheat, Germany produces wheat, China produces wheat, Russia produces wheat, Australia produces wheat. Those are the main guys. Germany being totally irrelevant in this market, but it's my home country, so I stuck it in there. All right? So what I want to figure out is, if you're a country, right, and you are operating in an international market where something's grown domestically and abroad, I want to figure out what the welfare consequences of intervening in markets are in terms of imports, right? So you could either let other countries import into your country as much as you want, right? So domestic consumers can buy as much Canadian and Chinese and Russian and Australian wheat as they want, or I could limit imports. Do we limit imports for commodities ever? Have you recently bought French wine? No, you haven't, because $2 Chuck is there, and that's good enough for you for now, right? It's $2. But we limit the import of French wines through certain types of import barriers, right? There are new all kinds of import barriers for all kinds of goods out there, and they come in three flavors. Either you completely ban imports of certain goods, right? We don't allow the imports of certain goods onto our soil. Then a weaker version of that is an import quota, where you limit the total amount of a certain good that gets to be imported. So Canadians get to import, 5 million bushels of wheat, or so Canadians get to export to the US, or we import 5 bushels of wheat of Canadian wheat. Or you could just charge people per unit, right? So if Canada, you want to sell wheat on the US markets, at the border we will charge you $5 a bushel, all right? So let's figure out what the welfare consequences are of these different policies, and then we'll learn why one is preferred to another and why WTO exists, all right? Wow, pretty tall order. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. Okay. So let's think about the extreme example where we're going to compare free trade, right? As much imports from other countries as we want is allowed, we don't interfere with it, and we're going to compare that to a complete ban on trade. Let's check it out, all right? First thing I'm going to draw is a domestic supply curve of whatever commodity we're looking at. Let's call it wheat, even though wheat has gluten. So this is the domestic supply curve of wheat, right? So take the marginal cost curves of all wheat farmers in the US, added up horizontally above minimum average variable cost. This is the domestic growers' supply curve. Then, since wheat is traded in a global market, right, it's not traded in corners in Iowa anymore. There are global exchanges where massive quantities of wheat are traded. There is a world price for wheat. So the world price for wheat, I'm going to say, looks something like this. Let me make sure I get my scale right here. Okay. So this here is the world price of wheat. Now, what I'm going to assume here is that my country cannot affect the global price of wheat, right? So if I put more or less wheat on the market, or I demand more or less wheat, it's not going to move the world price of wheat, which is also why oil is a bad example here. If the US all of a sudden really amps up its demand for oil, it's going to affect the global price for oil. So I'm going to assume that the country we're looking here is relatively small in comparison to the rest of the world, all right? So PW is the price of wheat on world markets. S is the domestic supply curve. Now what we need to complete the picture here is a pretty demand curve. So let's draw one. That's my demand curve, domestic for wheat. So the question now is, well, Max, I have 3 lines here. I can't figure out what the right point is because I know it's the one where lines cross, but I now have 3 options to choose from, so I've got a 1/3 chance of being right, which is too big of a gamble for me. This is where you switch on your giant brain and think about it, okay? So if you buy stuff, a homogeneous commodity, right? Wheat is wheat, which in reality it isn't, but let's assume it's a homogeneous commodity. You're going to buy from the cheapest person you can get it from, right? And then if they're out, you go to the next cheapest person offering it, and so on. So you start by buying from domestic producers, and you're buying more and more and more from domestic producers. And then at this point, what happens? If you continue buying from domestic producers, you're going to pay a higher and higher price, versus if you start buying from world markets, you can buy as much as you want at the world market price. So at this point right here, you switch from buying from domestic producers and paying ever higher prices to buying on the world market. So the supply curve that you face domestically is you buy this many units right here, right? This range here you buy from domestic producers, and then you go to buying on the world market. So this green dashed line right here, that's the supply curve. That starts with domestic wheat and then shifts to foreign wheat. So the equilibrium quantity and price that this market left alone will use is Q star, right? Where the price paid by consumers domestically is PW, it's the world price, and domestic producers, call it QUSA, that's how much domestic wheat we're consuming, and the rest of it here, that is imports. Okay? So the equilibrium quantity is Q star, and PW, you buy QUSA units of domestic wheat, and Q star minus QUSA units of foreign wheat, which we're going to call imports. So that's the first part here. Now, somebody comes in and says, can't stand Canada, right? They gave us Celine Dion and Justin Bieber, and that's just too much. So we're going to ban Canadian wheat. I got nothing against Celine and Justin, we're okay, but I have to come up with entertaining examples. So we're going to forbid the import of foreign wheat, and we're just going to allow consumers to buy domestic wheat. So what's the relevant supply curve? The relevant supply curve is you start buying at low prices from domestic producers, and as much as you would like to go to the world market to buy wheat, you have to continue buying from domestic producers, right? So if imports are banned, you can't import, so you have to buy from domestic producers. So the equilibrium quantity under a ban is going to be Q double star and P double star. Right? So I'm going to circle in red the quantities that we're going to compare. We're going to compare Q star and P W right here, so that's this one, to P double star and Q double star. That's this one. So now it becomes a little bit tricky. It's going to be tricky now, but it's about to become a lot more tricky in the next example, so pay good attention. The pizza slices I need are A, B, C, D, and E. So here, if you stare at this and you're trying to guess at what deadweight loss is, you have no idea. So the only way to figure it out is actually go through the steps, right? Start with consumer surplus. Relevant quantity is Q star right here. Relevant price is PW, and you have demand. So it's the area between demand and the price paid for all units over the range of consumption. So Q star, the consumer surplus, is going to be A plus B plus C plus E. Domestic producer surplus, because frankly, as a central planner, you only worry about domestic producers, so we're going to ignore surplus by foreign producers, is going to be, well, domestic producers in a world of free trade, they produce QUSA units of wheat, right? The price they get for these units is PW, so it's going to be the difference between price and supply over the range of production, so it goes out to QUSA. So domestic producer surplus is C. So welfare for U.S. consumers and producers is A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, that was easy, right? And I will make it clear in an exam that I'm looking for domestic producer surplus, so you don't freak out about what about the Canadian farmers. We don't care about Canadian farmers, okay? In this picture. So now the relevant quantity is Q double star and P double star. So this is the relevant price, this is the relevant quantity. So let's do the same thing, right? Consumer surplus is the area between demand and the relative price over the range of consumption. So consumer surplus is going to be A. Now domestic producer surplus is going to be, how much do domestic producers produce now? Q double star, right? They produce everything. So they produce Q double star. So it's the difference between P double star and supply out to Q double star. So it's going to be B plus C. So welfare is now A, B, C. So we used to have this whole area right here, A, B, C, D, and E. Now we just have A, B, and C. So we lose D and E in welfare. So whoa, deadweight loss is no longer a triangle, it's a pyramid. Well, a pyramid is with a triangle on its side, but that's besides the point, okay? Who wins, who loses? Consumers. They had A, B, D, and E. They lose B, they lose D, they lose E. Who wins? Domestic producers. So who likes import bans? Domestic producers. Talk to a sugar farmer in the U.S. Do they really like the U.S.'s sugar policy of no imports of sugar in significant quantity from anywhere in the world? They love it, right? U.S. ethanol producers. Do we like the fact that we don't get to import sugar-based ethanol in the U.S.? Where in Brazil you can produce the stuff at a fraction of the cost and much lower carbon footprint. Yes, of course, U.S. producers of ethanol love this stuff, right? Because it accrues rents to them that instead would go to Brazilian growers of ethanol. So that's a total import ban. Are total import bans generally favored by WTO? Try and ban anything in the current climate is not possible, right? So what you could say to the person walking into your office saying, you know, I can't go after a total trade ban. How about a quota where we just sort of limit the amount of imports? You're like, okay, you know, we can do that. So you agree with the person in your office, you're now a newly elected congressman or woman, that you are going to lobby for the limiting of imports of wheat. What are the welfare consequences of that? Well, I'm glad you asked, Max. Let's do it. Quantity, dollars. Here's my domestic supply. Here's demand. Here's world price. So I'm going to draw the free market, you know, leave the market alone supply curve, same one as before. You buy from domestic producers until it becomes cheaper to buy on world markets. So the equilibrium quantity is going to be Q star, and domestic production is that quantity. Now, because I drew this so nice and symmetrically, this is easy to draw, right? What are total imports? This here, this distance is imports. Okay, so in this new world right here, where I'm now going to limit imports, let's draw our new supply curve. We start importing, we start buying from domestic farmers, and then we start importing. But at halfway of what current imports are under free trade, we now put a quota in here. Okay, so this distance right here is going to be my import quota. So if there were no quota, you would keep on going to the right and just get to Q star PW. But now you're not letting people buy more than this amount of wheat from foreign producers. But at this point, you've got an issue, right? People want more than you're able to supply, so you need to get more supply from somewhere. Where are you going to get it from? Domestic producers. Our domestic producers, they stop producing right here. So what domestic producers are going to do, it's like you hit the pause button, right? So you bought from domestic producers, then you inserted a bunch of foreign production, and then domestic producers pick up where they left off. So you essentially cut off the supply curve right here, and you just shift it over here and pick up production again. So this here is going to be a parallel curve where you have domestic here, and you have domestic production here. I actually don't want to draw this domestic, and you can do it in your picture, but okay, so this is just parallel. Misspelled, but you know what I mean, same slope. So what's the new equilibrium price and quantity? This is the new equilibrium quantity. This is the new equilibrium price. Now, are you ready for this? This is going to be a bit nightmarish. What are the welfare consequences? Ooh. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch this out for you. Then I want you to go home and try it, and then I'm going to begin the next lecture with the right answer for this. This is hard, but I'm going to tell you how it works, and then I want you to go back and do it yourself, and then after that we're going to do this for a tariff, which is even worse, okay? So the pizza slices I'm going to look at are going to be the following pizza slices. Okay? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So at Q star, consumer surplus is just what it was last time. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, J, K. Domestic producer surplus H. So this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, J, K, and H. Now what happens? Oh. New price, P double star. Let's make a solid line here. So consumer surplus, you can see that one's easy, right? It's just the area between demand and price over the range of production. It's ACE, A, C, and E. Here comes the tough one. What on earth is domestic producer surplus going to be? You're terrified, but I want to assure you you have all the tools you need in one sentence. Producer surplus is the difference between price and supply over the range of production. What's the range of domestic production? It's this, and it's this little itty-bitty thing here. So the distance between price and supply over the first chunk of production, this is going to be B plus H. But then you have this little chunk of production here too, where you get a little more producer surplus. The distance between price and supply over this range of production is going to be G. So total welfare is A, C, B, H, G, and E, and you lose J, K, D, and F. You should never do stuff like this in the last 5 minutes of lecture. I realize this. But having said that, I will do it again in the beginning of next lecture. This is hard, and it's only going to get more tricky. So please, please try this at home and despair over it, and then feel better once I show you how to do this again. I have to run. I will see you on Tuesday. Have a nice weekend. Oh, no, I'll see you tomorrow, but have a nice weekend studying. Yeah.